The first time I saw her was over a dripping faucet. She stood in my kitchen doorway in a faded blue sweater and jeans that had paint smudges near the knee. Her hair was tied up, loose strands falling against her cheek as she leaned over the sink. "It's old plumbing," she said, half to herself, half to me. "It'll complain about everything except rent." I laughed a little too quickly, the kind of sound that tries to fill silence before it grows awkward. She smiled. Not at me exactly, but at the situation, and that was enough to stick in my mind. Her name was Lena, my landlady, mid-40s maybe, lived in the main house across the small courtyard. I rented the annex. She had that quiet, capable kind of presence. The kind that makes you stand up straighter without realizing it. Most mornings, I'd see her watering the plants outside her porch, mug of coffee in hand. I'd pretend to check my phone while actually watching the steam drift up from her cup. Sometimes she'd glance over, catch me, and wave. Just that, nothing more. But every wave seemed to last a second longer than the last. I started timing my errands to when she might be outside. Ridiculous, I know. But there was something about her stillness that felt grounding. Like she existed at a different pace than the rest of the world, and I wanted to match it, even for a minute. One afternoon, rain came early. I was sitting under the awning, scrolling through nothing, when she appeared with an umbrella. "You'll get drenched," she said, holding it out. "I like the sound," I said, trying not to sound too thoughtful. She tilted her head. "You always have an answer ready." "Not always the right one." That made her laugh softly. It was the kind of laugh that warms you for hours after it's gone. She didn't leave right away. Just stood there, umbrella half open, rain misting around us. I noticed her hand tighten on the handle. A small gesture, but it said more than words ever could. That night I couldn't focus on anything. I half wrote a text. "Thanks for earlier." Then deleted it. Typed it again, deleted again. It wasn't about gratitude, not really. I just wanted to keep the thread alive, like tugging gently at something you shouldn't. Days went by. We fell into a rhythm, short talks about weather, rent, the lemon tree in the yard. Always neutral, always careful, but beneath it all was something unspoken, like a song you only hear if you stop pretending it's not playing. Then one evening, I came home late from work. The light was still on in her porch. She was sitting there, reading, bare feet tucked under a blanket. I slowed as I passed, about to say good night. She looked up first. "You work too much," she said softly. "And you read too late," I replied. For a moment, she just studied me, the way you look at someone who might matter more than you planned. Her book closed with a quiet thud. "I need to stop this now," she said. I didn't know what this was, talking, glancing, pretending not to care. But my chest tightened anyway. I met her eyes, steady this time. "Then don't start again," I said. Her breath caught like she hadn't expected an answer. Then she smiled, small, tired, beautiful. "Good night," she whispered. I stood there long after she went inside, listening to the sound of her footsteps fade. Somewhere in that silence, something had already started, whether either of us liked it or not. For a week after that night, things went back to how they were. Or at least, they tried to. She still came by to collect mail that ended up in my box. I still waved when she passed through the courtyard. But there was something sharper under the quiet now. A kind of awareness that wouldn't fade no matter how casual we acted. It showed up in the small things. Like how I started noticing the way her fingers trembled slightly when she unlocked my door to fix something. Or how I'd find excuses to stay home on the days she might stop by. The first real conversation after that came on a Sunday afternoon. I'd been sitting outside, grading some online coursework, when she appeared with a tray. Tea, 2 mugs, and a plate of butter biscuits. "Rent payment peace offering," she said lightly, setting the tray down on the small table between us. "You already got the rent," I said. She smiled. "Then let's call it professional courtesy." We sat there, the sound of cicadas filling the silence. Her eyes stayed on the yard, but I could tell her mind wasn't there. "My son used to sit out here like this," she said finally, "before he moved abroad." Said the quiet made him think too much. There was a pause. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. She took a sip of tea, then glanced at me as if remembering I was still there. "You're about his age, aren't you?" 23, I said. She nodded slowly. "He's 20, 5. Something shifted in her expression then. Not regret exactly, but something close to it. Like she'd accidentally opened a window she meant to keep shut. We didn't speak for a while after that. I just listened to the soft clink of her spoon against the cup, the faint creak of her chair. She had this way of being still that made the air feel heavier, more deliberate. I tried to keep my eyes on the tea, but I kept catching details. The tiny scar on her thumb, the gold band mark that still lingered on her finger though she no longer wore a ring. You ever think about leaving? I asked quietly. Starting over somewhere else? She looked at me then, really looked. At my age, people don't start over. They just rearrange what's left. I wanted to say something. That she didn't look old, that she still could. But the words stayed behind my teeth. Instead, I folded the edge of my napkin over and over until it tore. When I stood to leave, she reached out, brushing a crumb off my sleeve. Her fingers lingered a moment too long. An accident that didn't feel accidental. Neither of us moved. Then she drew her hand back, her voice quiet but steady. Be careful with your kindness, she said. It can confuse people. I smiled faintly. Maybe it's already too late for that. She didn't answer, just looked at me with that unreadable mix of fondness and fear. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. It was raining again when the line between us started to blur. Lina knocked on my door just after 7, hair damp, cardigan darkened at the shoulders. The power's flickering in the main house, she said. Yours working? I nodded, moving aside to let her in. The moment she stepped past me, the small room seemed smaller. Her perfume, faint, something like cedar and soap, mixed with the smell of wet air. I'll just wait till it stabilizes, she said. You don't mind? Not at all. She stood near the window, arms crossed. The lights blinked once, twice, then steadied. We both exhaled at the same time, and that made her laugh quietly. See? All it needed was company, I said. She looked over her shoulder. You give yourself too much credit. But her eyes softened, lingering on mine a moment longer than they should have. Then the room went quiet again, not uncomfortable, just charged. The kind of quiet that feels like it's holding its breath. I offered her tea. She hesitated, then nodded. I busied myself at the counter, grateful for something to do. She wandered, touching things. The stack of books on the shelf, the half-finished painting leaning against the wall. You paint? She asked. Try to. Mostly late at night. She tilted her head, studying the brush strokes. It looks like rain. That was supposed to be light, I said. She smiled, that slow, knowing smile. Same thin sometimes. We stood side by side, staring at it. Her hand close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. I thought she might move away, but she didn't. Outside, thunder rolled low and long. Then a knock, sharp, sudden. She jumped slightly. I went to answer, heart still half in that silence between us. It was her friend, the woman from next door, carrying an umbrella and an apologetic smile. Lena, your lights are back. Thought you'd want to know. Lena blinked, like surfacing from a dream. Oh, yes, thank you. The woman's eyes flicked between us. A beat too long. Then she left, the door closing with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. Lena stayed still, gaze fixed somewhere near the floor. She probably thinks. She started, then stopped. I don't care what she thinks, I said quietly. She looked up at me then. Really looked. There was something raw in her face. Fear, maybe, or longing trying to disguise itself. Her hand lifted, almost on instinct, as if to touch my face, but she stopped halfway. Her breath caught. You don't make this easy, she whispered. I'm not trying to. For a moment, neither of us moved. Just the soft hum of the rain, the pulse of something we both pretended not to feel. Then she stepped back, her voice steadier. I should go. She turned toward the door. I almost reached for her hand. Almost, but stopped myself. The distance between us felt heavier than touch. The courtyard had changed with the season. The lemon tree had gone dull, leaves curling at the tips. I hadn't seen her much that week. Just the faint light from her window, at odd hours, her silhouette moving past like a half-memory. I told myself I was fine with it. I wasn't. When I finally did see her, it was on a late afternoon, sunlight weak and gold. She was kneeling by the fence, pulling weeds, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned haphazardly. Hey, I said, careful, quiet. She looked up, squinting. Being busy. Trying to be. I offered to help, mostly to stay. She didn't protest. So I knelt beside her, hands in dirt, silence between us. The air smelled of soil and citrus. It felt strangely intimate, working side by side, not speaking, every small motion saying too much. After a while she sat back, brushing off her palms. You're not bad at this, Wes. I'm useful for more than rent. Her laugh was small, caught somewhere between surprise and guilt. Then her phone buzzed. A man's name flashed, David. She silenced it quickly, slipping the phone into her pocket. Something in my chest tightened. Your husband? I asked before I could stop myself. Ex, she said flatly. Then, softer, mostly. We both stared at the ground. I didn't mean, I know. She picked at a weed that wasn't there. It's just, some things take longer to end than they should. The quiet stretched thin. A bird chirped somewhere, too loud, too cheerful. I wanted to say something honest. That it bothered me. That the idea of someone else in her life made the air feel different. But I didn't trust myself to say it right. So I asked, do you ever think about being with someone again? Her hands stilled. That's not a question you ask your landlady, she said, half smiling. Then don't answer as my landlady. She exhaled slowly, eyes on the fence. You don't understand what that kind of wanting costs. Maybe not. But I'm starting to. Her gaze met mine, sharp, searching, tired. I could see every thought flicker behind her eyes before she looked away. I'm twice your age, she said quietly. People talk. People assume. And she stopped, voice catching. I'm not built for that kind of chaos anymore. You think I am? No. She whispered. You're just young enough to think it's worth it. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain again. She reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, and I almost said it. That she made everything else fade, that I hadn't felt this awake in years. But she stood first. We should stop meeting like this, she said lightly, though her voice trembled. Then how should we meet? She didn't answer. Just looked at me for a long, unsteady second, the kind that changes everything even when nothing's said. The question hung there, suspended between us, fragile, dangerous, alive. After that afternoon by the fence, things shifted, not suddenly, but like a slow leak you don't notice until the ground feels damp. She stopped lingering. The next few mornings her porch light was off, her curtains drawn. I'd hear movement sometimes, the kettle whistle, the faint creak of a door. But no wave, no soft greeting. At first I told myself it was nothing. People get busy, people need space. But after a few days even the silence began to sound intentional. One evening, I saw her car still in the driveway long after dark. I almost went to knock, had my hand half went to the door, then saw another figure leaving her porch. A man, broad-shouldered, older. They spoke briefly before he left. She didn't look up. I stepped back before she could see me, the air colder than it should have been. Later she sent a text. Just 3 words. Rent's due Friday. No hope you're well. No small joke. No trace of what we'd been carefully, stupidly, building. I typed out, are you okay? Deleted it. Typed again. About earlier. Deleted that too. Everything I wanted to say sounded like trespassing. That night, I walked to the convenience store just to have somewhere to be. The cashier asked if I wanted a receipt. I said yes, just to hear someone speak directly to me. When I came back, her window was still lit. A silhouette moved. Hers. Pacing, pausing, holding her head in her hands. I watched for a minute, then felt like a criminal for doing so. The next day, I left the rent envelope in her mailbox early, before she could ask again. That evening she appeared outside my unit. No makeup, eyes red, a cardigan hanging loose off one shoulder. She didn't look angry, just tired. Thank you, she said quietly, nodding toward the envelope. I wanted to say you don't have to thank me for existing, but that wasn't language she'd allow. Instead, I said, you okay? She hesitated. Just old things resurfacing. Like the man from last night. Her eyes flicked up, surprised then soft. You saw. I didn't mean to. She nodded slowly. That was my ex-husband. He wanted to talk about selling the house. The words landed heavier than she intended. So, you might move. I don't know. The quiet between us thickened, full of all the things we weren't saying. That maybe this was the universe's way of undoing what we never should have started. I should go, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I watched her walk away, her shadow stretching across the courtyard. For a moment I thought she might look back. She didn't. Inside, I drafted one more message. If you leave, can I still say goodbye? My thumb hovered over send. Then I locked the phone and set it face down on the table. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. A week passed before I saw her again. The house looked emptier somehow. Plants trimmed back, boxes stacked in the window. I tried not to read into it, but the truth was obvious: she was preparing to leave. That evening, I found her outside by the steps, sitting with a mug of tea she wasn't drinking. A half-open box sat beside her. Old photo frames, a chipped vase, a set of keys. You're really doing it, I said quietly. She didn't look up. The sale's almost final. Just paperwork now. I sat on the step below hers. You're not even pretending it's temporary. She smiled faintly, without humor. I'm too tired for pretending. The wind picked up, stirring the edges of the packing tape. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, then silence again. You could have told me, I said. Her hands tightened around the mug. What would that have changed? Everything. That made her finally look at me. And in her eyes, I saw it. The same H that had been sitting inside me for weeks. You think this is easy for me? She asked softly. I don't think it's easy, I said. I just think you stopped trying before I did. She breathed out slowly, setting the mug down. You're young. You don't understand how quickly something like this turns messy. Maybe I do. You'd hate me for it one day, she said. Not right away, but eventually. You'd look at me and see all the years between us. All the things I couldn't be for you. I shook my head. You're not giving me much credit. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Instead, she looked away. Toward the courtyard, the tree, anything that wasn't me. I used to think wanting was harmless, she said after a while. You learn eventually that it's not. I stared at her hands, the same hands that had passed me rent receipts, teacups, small moments that had somehow turned into something enormous. Then tell me not to, I said. She blinked. What? Tell me not to want you. Her face changed, a flicker of fear, then tenderness, then something like surrender. I can't, she whispered. For a long time, neither of us moved. The air between us felt alive, like the pause before thunder, the inhale before confession. Then quietly I reached out. My fingers brushed hers. Barely, just enough to remind her I was real. She didn't pull away. For a moment, everything stilled. The night, the wind, the years. Just two people holding on to something that wasn't meant to last but still felt impossible to let go of. When she finally spoke, it was soft, final. Okay, she said, and that was all. No promises. No goodbye. Just that one word, fragile human enough. A year passed, the house sold, she moved 2 towns over, a smaller place, near a bakery and a park that smelled like rain after every storm. I stayed behind a few months longer, then found myself driving past that bakery one morning, pretending it was coincidence. It wasn't. I saw her through the window, arranging flowers in a chipglass jar at the counter. Same quiet posture, same small, deliberate movements. She didn't see me right away. I stood there longer than I should have until she finally looked up and froze. Then she smiled, small, uncertain, real. When I walked in, the bell above the door made a sound that felt too bright for the moment. She looked exactly as I remembered, only softer somehow. Lighter. You found the place, she said. I was just passing through. She didn't challenge the lie. Just nodded, gesturing to the empty seat across from her. We sat in silence at first, the air thick with everything we hadn't said in months. Then she pushed a mug toward me. Still take it black. I smiled. Still overwater your plants. That made her laugh, the kind of laugh that folds time in half. For a second, it felt like nothing had changed. Then again, maybe everything had. She told me about her new job at the shop, the quiet hours, how she'd learned to bake croissants that never rose quite right. I told her I'd started teaching part-time, painting less, sleeping better. We didn't mention the in-between. The nights that felt longer without her voice, the messages typed and never sent, the way her okay had echoed for months. Some things are too fragile to revisit. At one point she reached for the sugar jar and brushed my hand by accident. We both paused, instinctively. But instead of pulling away, she left her hand there for a moment. "Still confusing people with your kindness?" she asked softly. "Still warning them not to mistake it for more?" Her smile lingered. Maybe I stopped warning. The clock above the counter read 8:47 a.m. The same time I used to see her watering plants, coffee steaming in hand. Funny how time circles back on itself when it wants to. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Outside, the light was thin, the kind that makes everything look a little bit forgiven. "You'll come by again?" she asked. "If you want me to, I do," she said simply. I hesitated, then leaned in. Not a kiss, not a promise, just a moment of stillness. Close enough to see the faint scar on her thumb, the same one I used to notice when she stirred her tea. She smiled. "You never did fix that painting," she said. "I wasn't finished," I replied. Her eyes softened, understanding something deeper than the words. As I stepped into the morning light, I realized maybe love wasn't about beginnings or endings at all. Maybe it was about the quiet parts in between. The pauses, the near misses, the moments that never needed to be explained. And somehow that felt like enough.